Okay, let's move on. In terms of continuing with the theme of the FBI and the expansion of the national security state, this is one of those stories which got zero attention by people in the press because they mostly agree with it, but which is one of the most outrageous expansions of surveillance power on elected officials that we have ever seen. So let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen, which is that the Capitol Police is examining background social media feeds of some who meet with lawmakers. The little-known new practice by the department's intelligence analysts since January 6th is highly controversial given the civil liberties concerns it raises. And what they point to is that newly obtained written communications show that the Capitol Police are examining the social media feeds of people who are not suspected of crimes. These include people and staff and constituents who are meeting with members of Congress, elected officials. The Capitol Police is like, hey, what's the problem, Krystal? I mean, what's the problem? We're just compiling, publicly available information and dossiers on private citizens who are not suspected of crimes whatsoever. And another thing I want to always raise, Capitol Police is not subject to the Freedom of Information Act because it's a branch of Congress, and Congress exempted itself from the Freedom of Information Act, which means all of this can only be obtained via leaks. We have no transparency, no oversight into the Capitol Police, except for members of Congress themselves. They are one of the worst agencies post-January 6th, because here's the thing. Who failed more than anybody on that day? Those idiots. They didn't have their riot shields properly. They didn't prepare. If they had 100 more people, the whole thing looks completely different. So they fail, and then we give them billions of dollars, and they expand offices all across the country, and now they're using their spying powers and intelligence analysts to spy on members of Congress, to compile dossiers on private citizens. I'm sure I have. I'm not sure if you have. I've been to the Capitol since January 6th. Are they looking at my social media feed? I mean, look, go ahead, fine, I don't care. But is there a file on us for meeting with people who are members of Congress? I mean, what is the bar? Shouldn't they have to have a warrant? Or at the very least, when they're obtaining and compiling this type of information, shouldn't they have to justify why they're doing so specifically to people who are walking inside of the building? It's an outrageous breach of civil liberties.
And it may actually be in violation of federal law as well. One of the people they quote in this article is a woman named Rachel Levinson Waldman. She's deputy director of the Liberty and National Security Program at the Brennan Center for Justice. She says the practice is of questionable legality. It's a recipe for creating dossiers on people, and added that federal law protects against, quote, collecting and keeping of data about people without a specified and authorized person. The fact that there is no transparency in this agency makes it all the more troubling, because this is just what we found out from
a leak.
Leaks of what they're doing, which is, sifting through and potentially creating dossiers on anyone who effectively has contact with members of Congress. By the way, members of Congress didn't know they were doing this.
Yeah, they had no idea.
They knew that they were asking for lists of people that they were meeting with. That they knew. But when at least one member of Congress was presented with this information about what they were actually doing with those lists of people and compiling this kind of information, he outright called for resignations because he was so troubled by the implications of private citizens, congressional staffers, people who are surrounding our elected representatives, people who are just going in for a meeting to express their concern about some issue back home or whatever is going on. There are a lot of delegations that come to Washington from back home in their home state to raise issues about whatever it is, some infrastructure issue, maybe some schooling issue. So for all those people to be subject to this kind of invasive scrutiny and compiling of dossiers on who they are and what they care about, it's deeply troubling. And of course, the bigger picture here is what we've always been afraid of, is that January 6th would be used as a justification for furthering the police state, for furthering the surveillance state. And this is another indication that that's exactly what has happened in an agency where we are able to get so little of a picture of what they're actually doing. The other thing we've learned is how many of these government agencies have like intelligence units. I mean, the post office, like what?
How sifting through people's mail and gathering info.
Right. I mean, this is extremely troubling. Just the number of government agencies who are apparently spying on American citizens.
Remember, we did that whole story on the DHS secret unit, which then was spying on the reporter and got caught.
That was a crazy
story. This stuff was nuts. I mean, this is like out of a CIA, novel of meeting at a bar and gathering intel with a fake ID.
Right.
I mean, this is completely bonkers. And the reason why this matters is that it is a clear use of the intelligence services to, at the very least, pressure and provide fear in the hearts of people who might be meeting with members of Congress. And, look, these are elected representatives. At the end of the day, what they do is the expression of the will of the people. You may not like some of them, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and Scum Squad member, whichever side you're on, that's fine. But these people were still elected to the people's house. And to have the Capitol Police say under the guise of, we're protecting them, to go and spy on the people who they're meeting with, you can see so clearly how this could get out of hand. And we've already had the example. Remember, there was a left-wing podcaster who was visited by the California Highway Patrol at the behest of the Capitol Police for, I don't even know what he did.
It was like liking a tweet.
He liked a tweet which according to interpretation, it's up to interpretation, was supposedly threatening to AOC. Again, a left-wing podcaster. And they visited him. They're like, hey, why did you like that tweet? How about none of your freaking business? Excuse me? I didn't threaten anybody, as he rightfully said. And yet he's being intimidated, essentially, by the regime forces. I mean, this is something that you see in third world countries. I mean, you're not allowed to criticize lawmakers, or if you're in the opposition party, whenever one party is involved, then what happens? I mean, or let's say that there was an effort to undermine the Patriot Act, and you are meeting as a member of Congress, Rand Paul, some libertarian member, whatever, Thomas Massey, is meeting with people who want to take down the Patriot Act. Is there going to be a dossier compiled on those people and those activists who enter the Capitol? This gets very dicey. What if I, as a United States citizen, a media personality, want to go and start lobbying for a Freedom of Information Act in order to apply to the Capitol Police? Are they going to compile a dossier on me for threatening their right currently in order to remain silent? You can see so clearly how this can be easily abused. It's an outrageous breach of power. It deserves a lot more attention than it's getting.
There are a lot of problems in this country, as we document on this show daily, and a lot of those problems contributed to the ugly events of January 6th. Rather than deal with those problems, which would be hard and which would, be uncomfortable for the donor classes of both parties. Instead, this is the direction they always go in, which is rather than dealing with this underlying mess under the surface, let's just try to clamp down. Let's actually give ourselves and the deep state and the police state more power. Let's address it in that way. And then guess what happens? Those attempts will always fail. I mean, you clamp down harder, you surveil more people, you have the FBI conjure up more kidnapping plots, and people become more discontented because you've never dealt with those issues that are under the surface. You turn people against each other, then you end up with an even worse January 6th that justifies an even further escalation of violation of civil liberties. It is an ugly cycle that we're in right now, and so that's why we try to highlight little pieces of information like this that come out that show you the direction that this government is going in.
Yeah, that's right.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it, you get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.